Velsura. That time I got sent back in time as a slime, by Lobotomiskii. Chapter 9. An ominous fate in the ogre village. A troop of soldiers are lined up at the border of the village. The air is thick with tension, and the faces of the soldiers are filled with a mix of fear and anger. Fear that they might be facing their greatest foe yet, and anger that that foe is mere orcs. Indeed, how could a lesser race such as orcs challenge the ogre clan, one of the strongest races inhabiting the Jura forest? But only a fool would not acknowledge the danger facing the ogre village, which runs the risk of being stampeded by an army of 200,000 orcs. Fortunately for the ogres, a scout happened to spot the approaching army from a distance. The chief, upon hearing the news, immediately summoned the village elders, who reached a unanimous conclusion. An orc lord has been born. The entire village is now aware of the calamity that approaches their small settlement, that will surely crush them easily. Even the prideful ogre race admits that. But still, none of them chose to flee. They will stand their ground, and face the orcs head-on in battle. The ogres had formulated an elaborate battle plan to combat the orcs. A forward group of ranged fighters will whittle down the numbers of the orcs, while simultaneously retreating to outside the range of the orc army. After that, the orcs will be forced into a siege on the ogre village. The hill of which the village is built on was lined with defenses, walls and barricades dotted the grassland, and the warriors of the ogre clan lie waiting from within the defenses, prepared to use any and all advantages their wooden barricades will provide them. The ogres have no hope of defeating the orcs, that much is obvious. The ogre clan only hopes to whittle down the numbers of the orcs enough that whichever scoundrel commands the army will retreat. A battle of attrition. The plan was set, and the ogres were almost confident that they might win. The anticipation was clear. But the battle never came. The soldiers, from on top of the hill, watched the dust storm in the distance shift. They were confused. What was going on? Were the orcs trying to surround them? Or are the orcs simply unwilling to fight? Many began to speculate, but confirmation finally arrived from the units at the edge of the defensive lines. The orcs are avoiding the ogre village. However, there was still a possibility that the orcs were trying to attack from behind, so the ogres stayed on guard. Through the next week, they watched the dust storm in the distance slowly move south, then curve back, returning to their initial trajectory, marching to the west. Needless to say, the ogres rejoiced. They needn't sacrifice their own to fight the orcs, and they needn't risk being subjugated by the orc army. However, the chief and the elders have a different opinion. It is very likely that the orc army is headed towards a specific target first, perhaps a more powerful settlement, before returning to subjugate the entire forest, because the orc lord avoiding the ogre village for no reason seems too unlikely. No, it's absolutely impossible. Despite currently bearing no hostilities towards the ogre clan, the orc army will definitely become a threat to the ogre clan, no, the entire Jura forest and its inhabitants. Despite protest from all but one elder, the ogre chief forced through the decision to send delegations to the other races of the Jura forest. He was willing to swallow his own pride, and the pride of the ogre clan, to fight this potential disaster. He knew that if the Jura forest wanted to keep living in peace after their guardian deity, Veldora, disappeared, they must, somehow, work together. At Lake Sis, the lizardmen settlement, the chief of the lizardmen is confused. Why is the prideful ogre clan here to seek an audience with me? The lizardmen are a prideful group, being descendants of the dragons. But even so, they know their place in the food chain. A lizardman could never hope to challenge an ogre. The difference in strength was just too vast. Which begs the question. Why are the ogres asking the lizardmen for help? Despite the difference in numbers, the 300 members of the ogre clan could easily defeat the 10,000 members of the lizardman tribe. Which is why we believe that an orc lord has been born. The answer is this. The ogre clan can never hope to defeat a foe like that, which is why we are requesting the help of all the races within the Jura forest to help deal with this threat. The blue-haired ogre finishes his statement. Silence hangs in the throne room until it is rudely interrupted by a certain annoying lizardman. Ahem. My name is Gabiru, the sole named member of the lizardman tribe. I want to ask a question. The blue-haired ogre glares at Gabiru in annoyance. Gabiru, however, doesn't notice, and continues to speak. Why should we, the lizardmen, require help from lesser races like goblins and kobolds to defeat mere orcs? The forces of the Lizardman tribe should be enough to completely squash this Orc Lord. The arrogant Lizardman continues to ramble about the greatness of the Lizardman, while also insulting the Ogre tribe in the process, claiming that they lack the backbone to defeat a mere army of orcs. The Ogre can't help but speak out in annoyance. I don't think you understand the threat posed by the Orc Lord, arrogant fool. The army of orcs numbers 200,000, all of which are armed with proper combat equipment, much like human armies. Still, Gabiru is unconvinced. Even if that's the case, individual lizardmen are far stronger than an individual orc, so by picking off their forces at the side, we can completely decimate their numbers. Gabiru finishes with a smug expression. Indeed, this plan sounds good on paper, but it fails to consider the existence of individuals above a rank, who can easily decimate troops of lizardmen by themselves. The chieftain interjects, stopping his son from continuing his rambles. I sincerely apologize for the insolence of my son. We understand the plight that faces the Jura forest, and we will help the cause in any way we can. The chieftain glares at his son, shutting him up for good. For now, the Ogre clan will be scouting other races to prepare for the inevitable war with the orcs. However, we lack the manpower to properly initiate a recruitment campaign. That's where we'll need you, the lizardmen. This will be a cooperative effort between both our respective races, because with your numbers, you can more effectively recruit warriors than many settlements in the forest. The Ogre finishes his explanation, and looks to the lizardman chieftain, who nods, indicating that he understands the plan. In that case, the Ogre clan thanks you for your cooperation. The blue-haired Ogre disappears into his own shadow, leaving the throne room in silence. Once again, the silence of the throne room is broken by Gabiru, who indignantly shouts at the chieftain. Father, why must we yield to those ogres? Because we need their help to combat the threat of the Orc Lord in the Jura forest. Gabiru attempts to fire back, but his father silences him by pointing his trident at Gabiru. Gabiru, although still unconvinced, yields. Understood, father. Son, I recognize your talents as a warrior, but you are still far too inexperienced, and far too rash. The chieftain firstly criticizes his son, who lowers his head in shame. Stand up, my son. I will now give you your orders. You are to lead a battalion of lizardmen into the west of the Jura forest to recruit warriors from the goblin settlements. I trust that you can perform this task well. Father, I will not disappoint you, Gabiru declares, reinvigorated. Good. We will be needing all the help we can get to fight this approaching calamity. Orc Disaster Geld Pov. 5 years ago, on the brink of starvation, I met the man who saved my life. He found me collapsed in the desert, and offered me food. He said his name was Clayman, and he gave me an important task: become a demon lord. He agreed to help my people, on the condition that I join his ranks. I hastily agreed. I toiled for years, consuming the beasts that Demon Lord Clayman sent me to fight, all for the sake of getting stronger, but at the cost of slowly losing my mind. But one day, the fruits of my labor finally became ripe for the picking. I'd obtained a Demon Lord seed, and became a fully fledged S-rank threat. It was on that day that I received the truth from Lord Clayman, the ultimate reason for my existence. He told me who our final enemy was. He showed me what would happen if I failed. This is the reason why, now, I am bringing my people on a great march to the west of the Jura forest. All to eliminate the greatest threat to the world, before we are all doomed. That is my conviction, as the Orc Disaster.